Hi again. Welcome to the Upstander Training for Folsom Lake College's Equity Center. My name is Andrea Fortes. I'm the Equity Center Specialist, and I have two co-facilitators with me today. I want to let them introduce themselves.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Dominique. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I am the confidential campus advocate for all four of the Los Rios colleges.
And hello, everybody. My name is Jaskita. You all can call me Jas, and I am the Equity Center Clerk, and I'm so happy to have you all here today.
Thank you. Perfect. So we wanted to start off this presentation by showcasing our AAPI solidarity statement. So I'm going to go ahead and read this statement. So recent anti-Asian racist attacks, including the gendered and sexualized attack murdering 6 Asian women in Atlanta, highlighting the pervasiveness of white supremacist ideology, racism, and xenophobia in California and nationwide. The AAPI community shares a tragic history of discrimination, race lighting, and violence with Black, Indigenous, and other people of color. We also recognize Pacific Islander communities are standing in solidarity with Asian Americans in this moment that specifically target Asian women, or Asian Americans, sorry. We stand in solidarity with our AAPI community and call to end the hate that produces violence, division, and destruction. We also have a Black solidarity statement as part of our work in the Equity Center. Together, we stand in solidarity with our Black community, our students, faculty, staff, and administrators to fight against systemic inequity, injustice, and racism, which is resulting in the untimely deaths and immense suffering in the Black community. We understand that in addition to the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on Black and POC communities, we must address racism and white supremacy within ourselves, our communities, and our colleges. And then I'm also going to ask Jazz, we also have a land acknowledgement that we typically go over. Just with the interest of time, we're going to add it to the chat today. And then this final slide is our community agreement. So any presentation that we do, we have the community agreements, which we all agree on as a group, as a team for part of our trainings, workshops, and any events that we do in the Equity Center. So one, respect each other, share the space, confidentiality, what's said here stays here, what's learned here leaves here. Content warning, some content that is being shared may be triggering. Please share a content warning if what you share might trigger others. And then broken agreements. Those not adhering to the community agreements will be removed from the forum. So those are kind of our housekeeping and solidarity statements, community agreements, but I'm going to turn it over to Dominique to start our training today.
Yes, thanks so much, Andrea. So today we are doing our Upstander training, also known as our bystander intervention training. My name is Dominique and I work for an organization called Weave. So giving you all a little bit of background on Weave, on what we do. Weave's mission is to promote safe and healthy relationships and support survivors of sexual assault, domestic violence, and sex trafficking. So we are a nonprofit organization that serves the Sacramento area. We were established in 1978. We opened the first domestic violence shelter in California, which I think is pretty cool, and third in the nation in 1986. And we are Sacramento County's sole rape crisis center since 1988. So today, like I said, we will be talking about doing our Upstander training, also known as bystander intervention sometimes. So today what we'll be learning the definition of bystander intervention, right? What is this thing? I thought bystander was a negative thing, right? And we'll see the difference of what it is to engage in bystander intervention versus just being a passive bystander. And we'll also start to understand why there are barriers to bystander intervention, right? There are a lot of different life experiences and identities that we have, which can influence why we may or may not engage. And we want to break that down and kind of help understand better of why the barriers are there and what can we do about it. And then next, we'll discuss different steps to safely intervene. Like I said, yes, there are barriers and we definitely want to honor that and acknowledge that. But let's give y'all tools of how we can engage in bystander intervention and be an upstander, feeling as safe as possible, right? And then we'll also learn about the Weave advocate role, what I do for students and services that Weave provides, as well as some of the things that the Equity Center provides too. And of course, practicing self-care. So as we know, sometimes these topics aren't easy to talk about, right? Like talking about anti-Asian hate or instances of racism, or maybe even instances of violence. It's not always easy, so please practice self-care. If you need to step away for a little bit, if some of the content's a little hard to hear, please feel free to do so, or turn off your camera, whatever helps you. But with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So first thing is we're going to start off with a video talking about being a bystander, but I wanted to open up to y'all who are here. When you hear bystander, what are some things that come into your head? Like what do you think of when you think of a bystander? So you can unmute if you feel comfortable, or if you want to just type in the chat, that's okay too. I see the chat blinking. Let's open it up. Not standing up for what is right. Yeah, so just being there, standing there, right? Not standing up for when you see something. Thank you, Tanya. Anyone else want to add anything about what comes to mind when they think of, oh, bystander, or the bystander effect, which we'll watch a little video on right now? Not comfortable with confrontation. Yeah, and that's something that we'll talk about also when we talk about barriers to intervening, right? Is, feeling comfortable and feeling safe. Thank you, Phoenix. Thank you guys so much. Thank you all so much. So we're gonna go ahead and play this little video. It's about 5 minutes long, but it goes over what the bystander effect is and how it impacts us as people, as humans. Does that sound good?
If a stranger needed help, how long would it take you to offer them a hand? According to psychology, the answer to that question may depend less on who you are as a person and more on how many people are with you at the time. In a strange paradox of human nature, the more people there are in a group, the less likely anyone is to offer help. It's called the bystander effect, and it may be a roadblock that's keeping you from showing empathy. When someone is in need, people in large groups tend to feel that they don't need to do anything because someone else will take care of it. This is known as the diffusion of responsibility. The end result is nobody does anything. And if you don't believe me, I'll show you. We started with a large group of 10 people and told them they were here today to see a product demonstration. So we're just basically looking for emotional reactions to certain products. We're not quite ready to go yet. So as you can see, you have these surveys. Go ahead, start filling them out. Take all the time you need with them. I am gonna go get the product and just kind of start throwing it together, and then we're gonna begin. Sound good, everyone?
Okay.
Cool, thanks. Here's the thing though. Everybody but one of these people wasn't in on it. We gave her a 10-minute window where she could offer to help. Let's see if she comes to my rescue. We repeated this a few more times with varying results. Come on. That doesn't sound good. Ugh. Next, we tried it with a group of 5. Oh, jeez. Do you think you're allowed to do that? So far, it's not looking good for people in general. Are we just plain unhelpful, or is there something to the bystander effect? To find out, let's see how helpful people are when they're all by themselves.
Hi.
The results? With our group of 10 people, it took our participants an average of 8 minutes and 1 second before they lent a hand. Excuse me, thank you.
Can I help? I just feel
Thanks.
bad.
Participants in our groups of 5 were a little quicker. saving me from the tent with an average time of 7 minutes and 25 seconds. I'm okay.
Do you need help?
Do you want to give me a hand?
Yeah.
That'd be great, thank you.
What can I do?
But when our participants were by themselves, that is when they really shined. Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. On average, they offered to step in just 3 minutes and 19 seconds. You were the fastest by a country mile. I have set this thing up by myself 7 times today.
That makes me sad.
You took a total of 12 seconds. Why do you think you were so quick to do it?
I like to help in any way that I can.
That's the funny thing about the bystander effect. You would think that a group with more people would mean there's a higher chance someone would do something. But people in a group are actually less likely to help.
I knew I should have just stood up and done it, but then a big part of me wanted to see what these people would do, and I was just kind of like, are any of them gonna help?
At first, I was a little shy to jump in and help, but then after a while, just like, I'm just gonna jump in and help.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Sorry it took 8 minutes.
When it's just the two of us in a space, there's like a bond that's created. It's like, well, I'm not gonna let you struggle on your own. And I think if there is a group of people, it's way more acceptable for me to be doing that.
It's the diffusion of responsibility.
I think that's totally true.
If something is saying jump in and offer to help, just follow that intuition. Even if no one else is saying anything, just, hey, if you can be a part of helping someone, instead of just watching them struggle, or even take out your cell phone and like tape it or something like that, which is the worst, just offer some help.
So, now that you know about the bystander effect, ask yourself, how often do you feel like you should help someone but don't because you think somebody else will do it? Maybe next time, you will be that somebody.
All right, well, thank y'all for watching that video with me. So we see that, all of us humans, all of us as people are subject to this bystander effect, right? It doesn't mean that if all the people that were sitting with them, if they weren't actors, right? That doesn't mean that they're bad people, right? It just means that, that's what psychology does. So it feels like we can't do anything about it, but we can. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Can we go to the next one? There we go. Right. Sorry about that. Anyways, so it feels like this is this psychological thing that we can't do. But now that we know about it, we can do something, right? We can be more than a passive bystander. We can be more than somebody who just watches. We can engage in bystander intervention and be an upstander instead. I do see something in the chat. Let me check if one of y'all had a comment. Love the video. Thanks. Me too. All right. So bystander intervention means intervening if you see behavior or hear language that is harmful or promotes violence, right? So this can look like, say, maybe two friends making a stereotypical joke, right? Or maybe a racist joke, or maybe just hearing racist language that eventually promotes violence, right? We can step in and say, hey, that's actually not okay. We shouldn't be doing those things. Or maybe, in worst case scenario, we actually see violence unfolding. We as a community obviously want to keep everybody safe and happy and healthy. So we should be intervening because we don't want to engage in that bystander effect. But, with that being said, I do want to open it up and I want to have that discussion of sometimes there are barriers to intervention, right? Maybe somebody doesn't feel safe because of some identity that they have, right? Like I know me myself, I'm a smaller Asian woman. So maybe I don't always feel safe intervening when there are people who are larger than me, right? So I wanted to open up and ask y'all, like, what are some things that come to mind when you think of, oh, this could be a barrier, right? And again, not saying that makes these people bad people because they don't intervene, but we all have different life experiences and our safety is a priority, right? So open it up to y'all. What do y'all think? Ooh, I see the chat blinking. Let's see. Making a situation worse. Yeah, right. A lot of times, sometimes our cultures tell us, oh, that's not our business. Like, we don't want to get involved. Like, we don't want to make it worse for the two people who are arguing, like, mind your business. Which, again, if that's like a cultural belief that you had growing up, we can understand that too, right? It's not our place to judge others on how they grew up and what experiences they had. Thank you for that. Anyone else have anything that comes to mind when I think of barriers? Not knowing how to intervene. That's a great one, right? Maybe you are at school and you see two professors arguing, right? Maybe you don't feel like it's your place to intervene, or you don't know how when it's two people with different status, like statuses of power, right? So that's a great that's a great suggestion too also. But again, we will be talking about, so what are different ways that we can intervene that doesn't exactly make us feel like we're just going there and doing whatever, right? So thank you, good one. Anyone else?
Mine goes along with what Jazz was saying too. Like sometimes you feel like you don't have enough information or you don't know the whole story of something going on. And so like it takes you like it's time to assess what's happening. And then by that time, maybe the event has passed or, you know, like if it's a quick interaction, like in a parking lot, that's what I think of, like something that happens quickly and you don't react fast enough sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, and that's valid too, right? You know, sometimes maybe we just hear something, someone walking by and we hear something, or again, like you said, a quick thing in the parking lot. And I just want to, you know, make a note on that, that it's that doesn't mean that any of y'all did something wrong, right? At the end of the day, the only person who can stop violence or stop harmful language is the person perpetrating it, right? All we can do is try and educate each other and educate the people that we care about, maybe people who unfortunately don't have that education of, you know, maybe this isn't the right thing to say. So again, that doesn't make us bad people if we don't exactly think on the fly right away. But again, this is to help give us tools and to be a little bit mindful of those things too. Before I move on, other factors that I did want to bring up, because it comes up sometimes, is race, right? Maybe if you see an instance of violence, the first thing to think of is, oh, call the police, right? Call 911, call those who are here to protect and serve the community. But, you know, not all races have historically been treated fairly and equally by law enforcement. And that's something that's super valid. If a Black individual doesn't feel comfortable calling the cops because they, you know, that makes them feel unsafe, that is not our place to judge someone and say, oh, well, you're not engaging in bystander intervention. Because again, everybody has different life experiences. And historically, if groups such as, you know, the Black community or even the LGBT community haven't been treated fairly by law enforcement or government entities in general, that is just also another thing to think about and to be mindful of. Again, it's not our place to judge, but our place to give more tools, right? So with that, oops, here we go. So we have some different bystander intervention tips or steps, excuse me. So if, you know, if somebody feels comfortable directly addressing the situation, then they can do that. Like for me, for example, let's say that it's two friends of mine who maybe are making inappropriate jokes. That's the situation where I feel safe, where I say, hey, let me step in and just be honest with y'all. This isn't okay. Like you're perpetuating rape culture or you're perpetuating racist stereotypes, right? But let's say that maybe it's a situation where I, as somebody who identifies as a woman, I don't feel safe intervening. If it's an altercation between two people who identify as male, another option that I have is to distract the abusive person or distract the person who is engaging in that harm, right? And this can look like, let's say, I'm at a party and I hear two people arguing and I know one of them, right? Or maybe I don't, but anyways, so I cause a distraction like, oh, somebody, your roommate's looking for you. Can you go find them? Like kind of just distract him that way. So that way I'm not directly putting myself with the situation and addressing the situation if I don't feel safe to do so, but I still kind of stop it and kind of intervene in some way, right? And the next one is delegate. So the buddy system. If we don't feel safe doing something alone and intervening by ourselves, we can pull someone with us that we can help us feel safe too. So let's say the same situation, we see two people arguing, one person can check in with one of the people, and then the other person can maybe call 911 if that's what's needed, or maybe get somebody else to help in, or also get another person. Another place that this can work is, let's say you're out in public, or maybe you're at a restaurant, right? Or at a bar, and you know, this isn't your bar, right? You're not employees, you're not management, so you don't exactly feel safe intervening with other clients in the place or customers. You can always flag down administration, management, or whatever, and delegate it to them. As long as, you know, you're saying something, right? You're bringing it up to somebody so somebody can intervene. So we have a video, another lovely video that I will show y'all. And this is I like this video a lot because it shows each way that you can step in and engage in bystander intervention and be an upstander, right? We have examples of delegate, we have examples of direct, and we have examples of distract. And again, this is a bar scene because we have adapted this this training from a training that we give to bar staff in Sacramento area. So a lot of our bar staff are trained from this program called Safe Night Out, and they learn what domestic violence can look like in the bar scene, right? Or the club scene, or what sexual harassment and sexual assault can look like in that environment, and how they as employees can be empowered to do something about it and intervene. So we kind of adapted this, and even though this is a bar environment, it does show like, hey, there are so many steps that we could take so you can feel safe, and we can still honor those different life experiences that may give barriers, and have different options for y'all to intervene safely and comfortably. So I'm going to go ahead and play this video. Sound good?
Hello, can you believe that? I'm sure that didn't affect his like that. Bob, check that out. Are they together as a group or? I think we should go. At least then I should go. I noticed the situation. I'm here with my brother and my friend. This is my local bar, and therefore I feel safe enough to directly intervene. Let's go, Doc. Maybe we'll get some water. Hello. Hello. Are you okay? My friend also. Are they bothering you? Yeah. I think she's with someone. Shall we just wait here? So we're just gonna wait with you until your friend comes. I think she's here. Yeah, so this group has been sort of bothering her, and I'm not sure she's aware of what's going on.
But of course, like if I want off in t-shirts and shorts, etc. And then somewhere in between, don't make it obvious, just look that way. Let's be going on for some time now. But actually, but I'm going to go and try and get those guys to leave. But when I do, just go and check in on the girl. Yeah? Okay, we noticed those guys kind of bothering that girl. So I'm going to go across and try to create some kind of a distraction. Okay, let's do this. Hey, did you guys park your bike downstairs? Because they're towing all the bikes. Yeah, my friend just called me and told me, yeah. Same here.
Okay. Not too crowded. Few tables are free. Okay, listen. You come here, okay? I'll see you. Okay. Yeah, everything is fine. Okay. I'll see what's going on there. But I don't really feel safe to go in directly intervene because I'm on my own right now. So I'll go find the manager or bartender and ask them to do something. Excuse me? Could you please check on that girl at the table? I'll do.
Are they troubling you?
What are we doing? Nice guys.
What are you doing here? What am I doing? Please.
Drop it. Learn about bystander intervention.
All right, so I love that video. My favorite part is when after distract, he goes, let's do this, right? You had to mentally prep yourself. But I love this video because it shows, there are valid reasons why people may choose a different way to intervene, and that's okay, because there are ways that we can do it safely, right? These barriers that we talked about and the whole bystander effect of affecting like our psychology can make us feel like we can't help, right? Or maybe that we shouldn't help. But we see here there are different ways that we can safely intervene and still feel comfortable. And, if we think about something happening to ourselves like that, or maybe somebody we care about, like a family or a friend, you would want someone to speak up, even if it's something as little as checking in with the manager and asking them to check in on that person, right? Or check in on you. It could simply make someone's day better, or it can be as impactful as saving someone from a potential act of violence, right? Or an assault. So I just wanted to see if anybody had anything that they wanted to share about the video, or something that they learned new about. Oh, I didn't know that this was a way. Does anyone have any thoughts that they'd like to share? Ooh, see the chat blinking. Yeah, the video provided options, definitely. And it's one thing for me to say on the slide, here's this direct, distract, delegate, right? But to actually see them doing it, I think is super helpful. Thank you, Tanya. Anyone else want to add anything? Oh, I see an unmute.
Well, for I guess the different options for like, especially like when you're direct, it's like using that bunny system where it's like they were in a group of three, and it's like, okay, you grab someone, I'll check on the girl, you can distract. So it's like, teamwork.
Yeah.
So I guess not going in by yourself. So it's like the last lady was uncomfortable because she was by her own. So it's like when you are able to use the buddy system, that seems pretty helpful.
Yeah. And we can kind of see like kind of an overlap of the different ways to intervene, right? There's like every situation is different. So I'm not telling y'all that it's going to be easy and y'all will have a perfect way to distract, right? Every situation is different, but these are just some tools that you could use. And again, potentially overlap, like being direct, but also delegating somebody to do something else. So that's a great point. Thank you so much, Phoenix. So after this, we're going to go, oops, I did it again. Here we go. So bystander intervention, right? So we want to be aware of our surroundings. So noticing these situations happening around us, like how those people in that video did it, not just ignoring something if you see something that feels a little off, right? Recognizing that, hey, this might be a problem and, maybe somebody could use some help or some support at this moment. And then deciding, hey, I want to do something. I'm going to do something about this. I'm not going to let that bystander effect and this diffusion of responsibility impact me. We're going to find a safe way to help this person out. So decide how to act with the different options that we gave you: direct, distract, delegate. Yes, direct, distract, delegate, and then act. So we have a couple of scenarios for all, about 5, of things that are maybe not exactly the party scene, but could be relevant in school too, right? Because bystander intervention isn't only when you're partying and people are drinking. It's not only in the bar scene and going out, things like that. This can be in a classroom, right? This can apply anywhere. If we hear people promoting racist jokes or racist stereotypes or racist language, or things that perpetuate, rape culture, those are times that we can step in also too, right? We can engage in this upstander, being an upstander regardless of where we are, right? We always have these tools with us now. So with that, we'll go into the scenarios. Jess, are you cool to take over? Or okay, you're gonna get, okay, so I'll pass it over to you. So we'll have our scenarios.
right.
Go ahead.
So yes, we have 5 scenarios prepared for you all today, and we encourage you to kind of think about them, drop them in the chat, unmute yourself, or even if you're not sure, just say, hey, I don't know what I would do in this scenario. And then with Dominique's help, I'm hoping we can kind of figure out what the right way and what the best possible scenarios that we can actually take to keep ourselves safe while also helping others. So our first scenario is, it is post-COVID, and you are walking through Folsom Lake College's beautiful campus. One student spots an attractive person and makes some loud comments about their body and starts to harass them. What do you do? So let's think about the direct, delegate, and distract. Which of those 3 do we think will be the best in this scenario?
And I also want to make a quick note on that too, Jess. Thank you so much. That my right scenario might not be the same as your right scenario, right, Jess? Like you have different life experiences, like we talked about. So maybe you feel safe doing one method of bystander intervention and being an upstander, and I'll have another one. So again, if y'all feel that something is right for you, then that's right for you. But be mindful that everybody is different, and that's why we have these different options. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What do we think? Any ideas?
I guess echoing what Tanya said, like approaching, the victim as if like, oh, there you are, I found you. You're ready to like head over to the equity center now or something, kind of a thing. Which is also like if we are aware of the resources that our campus has, depending on what support they need. If if we're on campus, like if say Dominique was currently on campus, if they wanted support in there, taking them to Dominique's office, or just even the equity center as like a safe space to just kind of process what happened. If it was like a quick kind of a thing, or if they just taking them to a different location.
And I think what kind of helps is I would put myself in that person's situation and say, hey, if that happened to me, what would I want? And I think I would want someone to kind of acknowledge that there is something happening, because sometimes those extra pair of eyes can stop someone from continuing on their actions or whatever it is. So I think just kind of acknowledging, or even if it is from afar, just kind of giving that glare. I think eye contact and just that whole demeanor can actually, avoid other things from happening.
That's a really great point, Jess. I know with, obviously a lot of stuff is being shared on social media, and I saw a post that somebody else had posted about other methods of bystander intervention, and one of that was document, so making those people in that altercation aware, like, hey, I'm here and I see what's going on, and if it's safe and appropriate to do so, I'm documenting what's going on. That can be a way to help someone. Absolutely.
Any other thoughts or any other comments that anyone has would like to share? If not, we can go to the second scenario. All right, I think we can move on. So our second scenario, you are in a Zoom study group during a break. You and another classmate begin to talk about the pandemic and how it has been for you. Another classmate loudly chimes in with a racial slur. Other students are visibly uncomfortable. What do you do? And I feel like this is super relevant because we are primarily on Zoom. So I think this is something that we should really think about and see what it is that we can do to help, or to even just, like you say, be an active bystander.
Private DM the classmate. It's not a perfect comment.
Yeah, I think also, I guess, depending on the size of the study group, if it's like the whole class, then yeah, maybe a private message. But if it's, like people that you personally contacted to like say, hey, want to study together kind of thing, I think it's really easy to just call it saying, hey, one, that's not okay. Two, if you continue, we're not comfortable studying together again, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Having that barrier, like, or that, that boundary that I'm not going to engage with you if you're saying these things. I know me personally, this is somewhere I'd actually feel comfortable being direct and just, not even private messaging, just saying like, that's not okay. Like, that's not funny at all. Don't say that. But again, that's my perspective, right? I feel comfortable doing that and being direct, but there are so many other options to do. Yeah.
And I think if it's like a large, like Phoenix was saying, like a large group or a classmates that you don't really know as well, you could always connect with the instructor, like that's the way to delegate that and let them know like, hey, I witnessed this, or this happened in our breakout room, or whatever it may be, that if it's folks that you don't necessarily feel comfortable directly approaching.
Yeah, it's a great point too.
Any other suggestions or comments or anything? All right, we can go on to our third scenario. So you're invited into a class group chat and accept the invitation. You come to realize that students are making disrespectful and inappropriate comments about the professor through this group chat. What do you do? I feel like this one's kind of more difficult because this group chat is outside of that professional environment. So now it's kind of in your own, you have to kind of realize, okay, do I take this to the professor, or do I kind of deal with this on our own terms? So let's think about maybe, what we're comfortable doing, because we can take it the professional way and contact the professor, or we can kind of see what we feel comfortable, taking action and see what is safe for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is actually have had to deal with this one before. Just like being, because a lot of classes now they make like a class Discord that's meant for homework help, but occasionally, there are some degrading comments, and it's like in those situations, it's always, I guess, in a way, since like, it doesn't feel like the professor necessarily has to know what's going on because it doesn't help them, but it's just in a way distracting, saying like, for one, like say for example they say like, oh, I don't really like, the professor is like, I'm not understanding this, what's like, have you tried communicating with your professor? It's like, have you shoot them an email? If they're always willing to help, so it's like, if you want extra, offer telling them like there's also tutoring kind of a thing, so it's not just giving them resources where it's like, hey, if you do actually need help, here's how you can go about it, instead of continuing to complain, I guess.
I see Tanya in the chat said maybe make positive comments about the professor to try to diffuse some of that. So I think that's a great way of distracting and kind of, like you said, killing with kindness, honestly. I like that approach. That's really cool. I didn't think of that.
Yeah, that can definitely be like a humanizing factor to it, right? It's like, us being online on Zoom, it's easy to just be like, oh, the professor's just someone I see on the screen, and forget that they're people too, right? They're humans with feelings and life experiences. So that can definitely be a way to kind of remind people like, hey, like these are people with feelings. So that's a great one, Tanya. Thank you.
Any other thoughts or comments? It's so crazy how we have to think about these kind of things now with the Zoom environment, because usually you wouldn't realize that we'd have to deal with all of this, but it's a really good discussion to have.
Yeah. These are wild times. Everything has been so different this last year and a half. Yeah.
And I think especially with like things like Google Hangouts or Discord or the apps that we use, it's also anonymous to some extent. So it's like, unless you put your actual name, they don't exactly know like which student you are in the class. So it's like some anonymity lets people feel like they can, say things they probably would not in person.
Yeah.
And that can go good or bad. If you're anonymous and you feel like you can intervene and step in and make not a bold comment, but just kind of have that interaction, I think that's great. But then on the other end, students who do have that anonymous, name, it's like you can't really get held responsible for your actions if we don't know who you are.
Yeah. And that's why bystander intervention is so important, right? We can't let these people who are hiding behind, I can't say that word, Phoenix. You can say it. Being anonymous, to be, mean humans, right? We're all human, and we should love and care for one another. So that's why we're here today, learning about what can we do, right? Because we don't want people to experience those things.
Exactly. All right, we do have a fourth scenario as well. We've got two more. So you are sitting in class via Zoom and receive a private message from another student in the class. The verbiage used in this message makes you feel uncomfortable, and you respond by letting them know that you are not interested in any conversation with them. Yet the student continues to message you. What do you do? I feel like this is something that I've had to deal with, and I have yet to kind of figure out what it is that I should do. You kind of just sit there and let the class go by. You're like, okay, maybe that'll end it. But sometimes it doesn't just end there.
Yeah. I think in a similar line to like how you mentioned like you can start recording. If it's like a Zoom chat, you could take a screenshot of it on your computer and send it to the professor. Kind of a thing if you want to hold them accountable. Like, I guess depending on how serious the commentary is, like if it's harassment, then it should be held accountable. So it's documentation helps. Not that you need documentation to like have your story be believed in, but that's a way you can send that to a professor or whatever.
Yeah.
Or another
Especially if they're like it's feeling like harassment, right? Because you're making that boundary of, hey, I don't want to talk to you, and they're continuing to do so. That's crossing your boundary, right? That's not respecting your wishes. So that can definitely be, documenting the harassment can definitely be something to help out with that. Yeah. I also feel like this is relevant to our friends and family who may use inappropriate words. And that I feel like that's hard too, because maybe they don't have the education of why these things are not appropriate to say. And that's hard to tell that to your loved ones versus, somebody that you can message on Zoom really quick. So I know that's something I have had to struggle with and say, hey, we shouldn't be saying those things or making those jokes because they're harmful. I know, Jazz, I feel the same way. Like I'm still figuring out the best way to go about it, right?
And it's interesting because I have a very bold personality, so I don't mind making, I don't want to say I clap back, but sometimes I do because you get frustrated. You're like, why do we have to deal with such behavior, especially in such an environment where you're like, oh, I'm in the comfort of my own home, but yet I'm still getting these comments made towards me through a screen. So I think that's kind of like the frustration comes there. And I think I use my frustration as a way to kind of lash out at them, and then I make it okay for making mean comments back. So I think acknowledging that I shouldn't, be rude to them, because sometimes you don't know what this person's going through. You don't know why they made those comments. So I think being empathetic regardless of how, distraught or frustrated you can be, because I know sometimes I go in over my head too in the moment, and I don't think that what I'm saying back to them can also be harmful or rude.
Yeah. And that's a really important conversation that you have with yourself. And I think that's great that you actually have that awareness of, oh, even though this person is upsetting me, I can still be direct and, intervene and say, hey, this is not okay. But still, again, being mindful that we're all humans, right? And sometimes humans don't have that education. And unfortunately, we got to step in sometimes and help them out with that. But I think that's great that that's something you think about. Yeah.
Anybody else would like to share something or comment, question? All right, we have our last scenario. One of your friends expressed how distraught they have been lately in regards to all the injustices going around in the world. You notice how disconnected and isolated they've become. How can you help in this situation? What can you do?
I think checking in, right? Initially, especially if they're a friend, just initially checking in with them, letting them know that, that you're noticing these things or that you're, realizing or just to kind of see where they're at, and what they're, I mean, I think we all have our boundaries, right, as to what we can help with and what we can do, but at least kind of checking in, in a friendly way to see, hey, I've noticed this. You want to talk about it, or you want to work through some things with me, just kind of having that friendship sort of interaction initially, and then seeing, how I can refer them or connect them with other resources or something like that too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if you are comfortable being like the vent buddy, even if you're not exactly sure, like, oh, how can I, even give like words of comfort? I can't solve their problem, but it's like just having someone else listen to you is really helpful, personally for me, because it's like, then it's not just in your head, someone else is aware of it. And, sometimes just even that, acknowledging, you're not doing okay. It does make it better. Just knowing that someone else knows.
And I think that's really important to also kind of have a conversation with yourself again, if you're able to kind of accept that toll. Because sometimes when you do ask someone, hey, I've noticed this, and they kind of tell you everything, you realize it has an impact on yourself as well. So also preparing yourself to have that conversation, because some of us aren't ready to be exposed to things that we haven't experienced, because everyone's life stories are different. So something going on can affect my friend, but it may not affect me. But when I come to realize, the perspective she has, it can eventually take a toll on me. So I think realizing that we also need to be kind to ourselves and to our others around us. That's something really important to take into consideration when having such conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. I know Tanya in the chat said offering resources. I think that is super, super valuable, which we will get into right after this. Because, you know, us as somebody's friend, we're not in charge of solving all their problems, right? We're not in charge of making everything better for them, right? We're there to support them. And, you know, maybe they don't know other ways that they can get support too. And us knowing our resources and being able to share that with our friends, they might not even know about it. And maybe even if they don't access the resource, right when you share it with them, you're planting that seed and you're saying, hey, I know that you're having a hard time right now. And that's super valid. Here are some things that the school does to help you, or here are some things that the community provides that might be able to help you, or even just some things to read that can help you too. So I think that's really great that you mentioned offering resources, Tanya. Thanks.
All right, well, if there's any other comments or anything throughout, please do feel free to unmute or just put it in the chat. But I appreciate you all for opening up in these kind of scenarios. It's hard to put yourself in someone else's shoes, but the fact that we all kind of work together as a team to figure out what it is that, you know, may not be the best option, but what works best for us.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Jess, for facilitating those scenarios. We'll go ahead and go into the next portion, which is, let's say we did intervene, right? We help somebody who is maybe experiencing a racially motivated attack or assault or conversation, things like that, or maybe somebody who is experiencing physical violence. And now that we've intervened, right, and we helped out, well, how else can we help? How can we meet those people there and where they are? So we have a quick little list of things that you can do, which is listen, focus on their needs rather than expressing yours. I know a lot of times if it's a loved one that comes to us and says, hey, I experienced this negative thing, we can have our own emotions come in and potentially be like, oh, I'm so upset for you. Like, I'm so mad at them. How could they do that? And maybe that's not what that person needs right at that moment, right? Maybe they just need somebody to listen to them and to acknowledge what they've gone through instead of you kind of putting your emotions all out for them to have to, you know, do that other more labor for them is to help you too, when you just helped them. Next is to believe them. Be empathetic and non-judgmental. You know, don't blame them for what happened or the circumstances surrounding it. Again, like we mentioned in the beginning, the only person who causes harm and violence is the perpetrator, right? It's those who choose to engage in that harmful language or those harmful actions. So we should not be blaming other people for something that they don't have control over, right? Don't make decisions for them, give them options. A lot of cases, like maybe in cases where I work with students who have experienced domestic violence or sexual assault, they have that power and that control taken away from them, right? So this isn't another space where we should be telling them what to do, but instead give them that power back and give them that control back and let them decide what's best for them in this moment, giving them options. Offering support and resources, like Tanya said, knowing, you know, what community resources there are or campus resources there are so we can pass it along to them if they want to access them, and knowing organizational policies and procedures, so being transparent. So sometimes if there are situations where law enforcement gets involved or maybe some other administrative entity gets involved, it won't always be trauma informed, right? It won't always be putting the survivor first or whatever the case may be. So it's important to be transparent that, hey, this may take this long, or hey, this is how their process works. You might have to answer some questions about the situation. That way, people who we support can feel prepared when they go into those situations, right? So what to say? Now, you know, we have our society who often victim blames. So we want to make sure that we have tools also to support those if somebody discloses something to us, or maybe if we're intervening in a, you know, harder situation or a violent situation, we don't want to say the wrong things, right? And I want to acknowledge that there's no one way to respond to an event. Everybody's situations are different. And just because you respond one way doesn't mean that you're wrong and you should have said these whole list of words, right? These are just things to put in your back pocket that you can feel confident that, hey, this shows my support for that person. This shows that I care. So these are things like, let me know how I can support you. I'm here for you. Whatever you did to survive the situation was the right thing to do. I'm so glad you told me. You're not crazy. That sounds like a scary experience. It wasn't your fault. I believe you and you are not alone. So again, these are short, like one sentence phrases that may not seem like a lot, but they can really show that you're supportive and you care and you want to provide whatever support you can. So with that, that's kind of the end of our bystander intervention portion of the tools that we're giving you. So now we want to give you some resources and options too, right? So me, myself, the Weave Confidential Campus Advocate. What do I do? Why am I here? Why am I talking to y'all, right? So my name is Dominique and I'm the confidential advocate for the whole district. And what I do is I can support student survivors or staff survivors who have experienced domestic violence, sexual assault, or sex trafficking. So I can give them that confidential emotional support. I am not a mandated reporter. So if anybody wants to talk about things that happen to them, that can help them feel a little more comfortable talking about it. And I can connect people to resources. So if I have a student who wants some legal assistance, right? Maybe they experience a violent situation and they want a restraining order on the perpetrator. Weave can help with that too. We have a legal team. Or let's say an individual is struggling with their mental health and they want to access campus counseling, right? They want to access some of our campus therapists. I can help connect them to that too. So the way that you can contact me, my hours are Monday through Thursday from 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. I have that phone number right there, which leads to this little guy over here. And I also have an email, super easy to remember, weave@losrios.edu. And we have an Instagram. So we do little mini educational campaigns on there. So give us a follow if you're able to. I host Zoom office hours because pre-COVID, I had office hours at each campus. So I just host them Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. And if you or someone you know needs support that's related to domestic violence, sexual assault, or sex trafficking, and it's on the weekend or maybe after my hours, Weave has a 24/7 support line that is located right here, 916-920-2952. And anybody can call that to access some emotional support, ask some questions, or start accessing services. But with that, I think next is the Equity Center information. So I'll pass it over to Andrea and you can talk about the lovely Equity Center and wrap it up for us.
Perfect. Thank you, Dominique. So as part of our work in the Equity Center, we strive to provide a welcoming space for our students, faculty, staff that are at Folsom Lake College. We've transitioned our services to online Zoom environment. So we host weekly drop-ins where we have our academic counseling. We have Dominique join us. We have mental health support, career and internship support also that comes into our center. So those are held every Monday at 1 p.m. and every Wednesday at 3 p.m. So we're at the end of the semester. So next week is actually our last week of drop-in, but we do plan to stay open through the summer. We won't have drop-ins, but we do plan to stay open so you can connect with us through these either email or phone number. And we also have social media. So we post things on our Instagram page, our Facebook page, and our Twitter page just to kind of stay connected to our center. We'll be offering drop-in services next semester as well. So we'll start back up in the fall. Other things that we provide is we facilitate workshops. We facilitate in-class presentations as well on different topics. This semester, we did a couple of HCD presentations on transgender rights and policies affecting the transgender community. So those are just the types of things that we do in the Equity Center. So I want to thank you all for joining us. You know, this is sort of the end of our presentation. If there's any last minute questions or comments, feel free to unmute yourself or put them into the chat. But thank you so much for joining us this afternoon for our last event of the Equity Center for this spring 2021 semester 2.
Yes, thank you all so much. Yes, thank you so much, Tanya and Wenda. It was nice for y'all to be here. Thank you.